Hi. Welcome back to HMODS, and today we're going to try to finish this thing. And I say that because every time we are trying to finish this thing. Play the music.
Oh, yeah. You gotta get sweaty. You gotta get sweaty in here. It's time to get sweaty.
This video is brought to you by CyberGameway, with an emphasis on exposing streamers of all types, as well as exploring business relationships with partnered websites and service providers. CyberGameway is the place you want to be for streaming gamers who want that sub bump. To apply for membership or sponsorship, head over to cybergameway.com.
Really, I mean, we're trying to finish this thing, but that's up for debate because how long it takes to do cable management.
And how long it took me to do fans. The last video was entirely about fans. Oh, that's not true.
No, not true. But we recorded like 60 minutes almost worth.
Yeah, we did 60 minutes on fans.
Fans and fan grills and fan wiring.
That was great. So, as you can see, your screens are now on the other side of the chassis, and it was suggested that I paint the fan screws. So we're gonna do that first, and then I'll be really quick, and then we'll actually start putting shit in. This is the paintbrush that I use for the spray paint, and it is toast, but we can still use it for this because it doesn't need.
Come on, muscles. You can do it.
Oh my god. I bought all this paint and I used that much of it. I bought all this paint for this color and I used that much of it. I'm kind of, yeah, it's still kind of, I mean,
it was like twice the cost of a can of spray paint, and they didn't have the color that you wanted.
yeah, and we were going to use more than one can of spray paint, so there is that.
Maybe you should consider doing this one.
Consider buying interior paint.
Well, a bucket of paint.
Well, that's probably not the worst idea, but if I'm gonna, like, white would probably be the best color to do that for, but I would have to buy auto paint.
Paint lasts years though too.
Yeah, that's true. And I'd have to buy auto paint, because because some spray paint is good under heat, but anything near the motherboard, you stand the chance of having it sort of discolor. And I ran into that problem with the Commander because I used semi-clear, and semi-clear, as it turns out, doesn't really do well with motherboard heat. I also went ahead and mounted the AIO to the top because I really think it's going to save a lot of heartache when it comes to putting the motherboard in. And should I paint that? Because I think it actually looks good considering, you know, what it's meant. I think it's good. I think we won't paint this. But I mounted this because when I put on the top thing, all I'll have to do is mount it to the CPU. All the fans will be run. This is really saving me a lot of time. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so now we can start putting shit in. Finally. What I did the other night too is I took a bunch of double stick tape and I put it in right here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these, I'm going to run it like this and then turn it so that it goes into the fan hub. And I'm going to do something similar up here. You notice that I put this double stick tape that way because I ran it this way off the fan, and then I kind of went it like this. So what it's going to do is it's going to come over to the fan hub and just kind of go like that. It's going to be perfect.
You know, sometimes when you like look at clouds and it looks like something.
Sure.
When I look at one of your welds, it looks like a
Which one are you talking about? Oh God. It kind of does. And once again, seeing as how we're using an Asus B550, we are going to have to split these like we did on the Commander, because this is the ARGB and this goes to the top of the motherboard. So we're gonna have to split it right there, all the way there, because this is gonna have to run up here, and then this will just run down here with these cables. I'm just gonna put it in that run right there, and there's actually gonna be a lot of length. So yes, that'll be good. So that's in there, and this is the fan one. And if I didn't forget last time when we were working on the Commander putting in this hub, there's a little nub. Get in there. That little nub, you have to push it. Like, I was having a bitch of a time getting this fan thing in, and then she showed me that you have to sort of push it in order to get it in there. So I have not forgotten that. I learned something. This one's got much more length, so we're gonna, this one's the top one, so we will I'm gonna run it under this, and then I will make it so that I can just kind of turn it like that, so that way I can run the tape and it's not gonna. Good. So now we need this giant roll of double stick tape. I kind of want to take this off again. It'll make it easier to work with until I run everything. On the other hand, after the fans, it's going to be the next thing I work anyway.
It's kind of in the way right now, though.
It is a little bit in the way, but it's workable. The cool thing about a build like this is I can be like turning it, and it's just going to be randomly scraping the paint, which will just make it look even cooler. So we will run that tape right. I'm going to take it off. Run this tape right along this ridge right here. That's a good length right there. That's what she said. And I get the razor. Not putting on the top panel was just, it really is saving me a buttload of just nitpicky irritation, because running the fans along the top panel, for one thing, is a giant huge bitch. And secondly, you really limit your ability to work in the space that you're given, because without the top panel on, I can run all the cables where they're supposed to go, and it will just look really nice. And then all I have to do to put the top panel on is rivet these in, and then I can just put the CPU cooler, I can just run the AIO exactly where it needs to go with no fuss at all. That looks awesome. And it's that kind of cleanliness that I just fucking love. So this is what's powering the hub. And so what we're gonna do is there's a SATA cable that's gonna come through here. It'll power the hard drive, and then it'll come through this thing again at the bottom, and then we'll just run it like that. I did the same thing on the Commander and it looked fine. So this is the top one. We're gonna do that first. And I got this tape right here, so I'm gonna run it along this lip right here, and then I'm gonna turn it, and then I'm gonna run the bottom and the middle along this one here. See that right there? It just looks so clean. looks so good. Doesn't that look good? Time consuming, yes. Tedious, very. Worth it, every goddamn second. Because when this is done, I am reasonably sure this is going to be one of my favorite builds. Because it'll be clean, but at the same time it'll be just, it'll be singular, and it'll be, because nobody else does this. Like, everybody uses zip ties, and I'm kind of happy about that, because I don't mind telling people that I do it. But I also sort of warn them off by saying, yes, it takes 7 hours. Because it does. This takes forever. But the fact that it ends up turning out so cleanly, worth it. Because this is the third project I'll have worked on for this guy. And so, there's a reason for that. And then what I'm going to do is what I did here. You notice I cut all the extra stuff off there, so you're not even gonna, it's so fucking awesome looking. So now all we've got to do is coil these up with the zip tie, which is right here. And I hate using zip ties, but look at that. Just look at it. I mean, just look at it! Yes. It's not necessary to cut all the excess stuff off because really nobody looks at it that much. But for this build, I want to make it nice and clean, and everything, just all the stuff just looks so clean. And, you know, while you can add more tape later if you run more fans or something, one, this case is not going to be able to support that. And two, this just looks so much better. So we're pulling it right off. Doesn't come off the easiest though. But that looks really good. I'm not gonna deal with this one, but I am gonna cut just the tiniest bit of excess right on this side. But other than that, I'm not gonna touch that because that's just too intricate. But you like the excess is gone from this side, and then I'll just cut this bit off right here. This little happy piece of double stick tape, and that'll be our little secret. And if you ever tell anyone that that tree is there, I will come to your house and I will cut you. As tedious as it is, I kind of enjoy having to pull stuff off and put it back on again, and pulling it back off and pulling it back on again, because it sort of makes it like muscle memory. Because if this thing ever comes back to the table and I have to do something with it, then I'll know exactly how I worked on it in the first place. So that, wait a second, the USB is on the side, isn't it? Why, yes it is. Good thing I figured that out.
What does that change?
It means I have to change the run. Because that's a lot of extra space. Because the USB is right there. Which means I have to run it out this grommet. Which is kind of a bitch. It really makes you wonder though, like, this is a really, really small case, relatively speaking. Who the hell thought of making the cable like 2.5 feet long? There's no point to that because you're just creating a lot of, you can't bend these like really well and have it look any kind of good on the back because people like showing off their cable management. So you pull off the back, you're gonna have bendy, bendy, bendy. There you go.
That works.
Yeah, that works. Okay, that's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna run it around this way, on top of these cables. And then we're gonna loop it down here. Then we're gonna run it up here to this grommet. It's a long walk for a small glass of water, but oh well. And then these. I have no problem with length either. The same thing with this, which we're not even going to use, because who the f uses the headphone jack on the top of the cable, on the top of the chassis anyway? I just talked to the client and I asked him if he uses the headphone jack on the front and or top of the computer case, and he said no. So I'm pulling this off because nobody uses that thing. Everybody plugs their headphones into the back of the motherboard. So we're pulling this off, and even though it's probably never ever going to get used, I will include it with when I ship it, and I'm going to be gentle with it. Otherwise I just go snip. So now the only cables we have to run are the power LED, the power switch and LED, and then the reset switch and LED, and then the USB. So that just made things a tad bit easier because nobody ever uses the HD audio. So that would be another cable that we would have to run way the over here. And now we don't have to do that. So now we just have to worry about these, which are going to go right here, and this, which is going to come all the way down here, curl, and then come all the way back up here to this grommet. But since we don't have any fans over here, that'll be easy. I just wish I didn't have to cover up these fans, because that just looks super cool. This is going to look so good. It's nice that I can see it in my head exactly where I want it to go, and then that's exactly where it goes. So we'll put the last piece right about here, because that way it's going to have to curl in and curl around. So do that one, and then we'll do a couple of thin ones this way. I don't understand though why none of the tech companies have been like, you know what, we should just make this into one thing. Because they make adapters for that. They make adapters, you just plug it all in there. But they should just why haven't they just made it so that it's all one thing? It would be very simple. And then it'll curl under here and go in there. Crisp, clean, and tastes great in the morning. Trademark enforcement's weird because when I was in 9mm, when I was in 9mm Solution, I made all the merch. I designed all the merch and I got it all printed for our sponsor. So it was one of those things where I was basically in charge of all of it, and their sponsor was a tattoo shop actually. And one of the t-shirts I designed, and a lot of bands do this, and it was really, really sort of trite, and but one of them was, it was a take on Harley Davidson's Bard and Shield. And it turns out that Chad, our bass player, happened to work for Harley Davidson. That doesn't turn out, but I knew that he did. But he said that we would. He basically said, not only no, but hell no. He said, Harley Davidson's trademark enforcement team are crack shot f***ing snipers. And he said, most companies aren't, but Harley Davidson has made, it's basically cosplay for rednecks. That's how he called it. I'm like, you work for these guys? And he's like, and? I love that. But he said that a lot of companies don't bother because, people will just stop using them or they'll redesign it. And the thing about trademark enforcement is if you make just a few changes to something, you're fine.
I tried to recolor a slime and it took me way too long to make it work.
That one's still on there. What?
You running things like you did.
You mean all the merchant? Thanks. I didn't book all the shows, and I didn't write all the guitar riffs, but I had a hand in all of them. And I wrote all the lyrics. But yeah, I basically managed the band. And I can say that without any conceit. My guitar player would love to say that he did it, but he's not the one that got us signed. And he's also not the one that got us management, or the booking agencies, or the tours. That was all me. And it was not fun, that's for sure, because all of it landed on me. If anything went wrong, it all landed on me. But at the same time, I was the one that worked the way I work. I work quickly, I work quickly, I work efficiently, and I get it done the first time. And so the tours, something went wrong on every f***ing tour. But it wasn't the kind of thing that was like within my realm of control. It's just shit happens and you sort of roll with the punches. Like the first tour we went on was Psycho Stick, and it's still one of the coolest stories I have, was the basement flooded. And my basement, which is where we practiced, the basement flooded hours before we left for the tour. And it was a huge storm. And unbeknownst to me, there was I knew that was there, but I thought it was closed. There was a grate, really about a foot wide in diameter. It was a grate. I didn't know it was a sewer grate. So the hours before we left for our tour with Psycho Stick, it flooded and all the sewage backed up into the basement where all our band gear was. Thankfully, it was packed up, but it was my basement was inundated with 6 inches of liquid shit. So that was fun.